but it gives the reader some insight into what life was like in growing up in the segregated South and how that experience helped prepare me for those twists and turns that I took along the way. It describes the various paths that I took as I faced adversities during my life from my childhood through through adulthood. As many of you know, some of you know, I grew up right here in Powhatan, Canada, in a little section called Ballsville. I rode up there today to take my cousin to see her grandma's house and go by the church to look at the graveyard and look back to where I grew up and pass by the school I went to from 1st through 6th grade. And it's kind of interesting going back, but I grew up on a very small farm raised by hardworking, honest, God-fearing parents. I was the youngest of 5 children, and even by the time that I came along, life was not very glamorous. It was kind of hard on the farm. We had a farmhouse and a wood frame house, and we didn't getting electricity was a real big treat. And I want to read a little bit about what that experience was like for me as the youngest child. I'll never forget the day we got electricity. I was 8 years old, and I ran through the house flicking every switch just to see if the lights would really come on. It was like coming out of a dark cave and being hit by the blinding sun. To think that I could now read and do my homework without hunching over a kerosene lamp, or that I could go from room to room without having to carry a lamp. It would be another 4 years before we traded in our icebox for a refrigerator. What a glorious appliance. We no longer had to rely on the Iceman's weekly delivery or worry that our meat and vegetables would go bad. There was one modern appliance that Mama just couldn't adjust to, however, the electric stove. She swore that food never tasted as good as it did when it was cooked on the wood-burning stove. We never did get rid of our pot-bellied stove, which remained our source of heat. We had one in the kitchen and one in the dining room. We never got indoor plumbing. And we got a party line telephone when I was a teenager. How many people remember the party line? Well, I think everybody, most of you here remember it, but for those younger people who don't remember it, it was a telephone that you shared with a number of other people, at least 2 or 3 other people, and you knew you got a telephone call by the number of rings. So we had 2 rings or 3 rings, but my girlfriend and I, we had a lot of fun. We'd pick up everybody's and listen to the conversation until our parents found out about it. But that was a lot of fun. Though we had limited material possessions, there was a lot of love in our house, my parents and my siblings. Now, this little town was a really, really small town. And the reason I know it was small, I went up to talk to some of the people there, and Porter Smith. That's Porter Smith City right there. That's Porter Smith. Porter, how old are you? 90 years old. And I wanted to read to you what Porter told me about the population of Ballsville. He told me that he had gone to the military. I asked him if he knew how many people there were in Powhatan. He said about 200. And he said, the reason I know is because I was in the military. And stationed in India, I think he said, and he told someone he was from Ballsville, and a guy went to get a book, probably something dealing with the census, and the guy came back and said, nobody lives there, only 200 people. So I'm sure Porter knew what he was talking about. I wasn't quite convinced, though. I went back and talked to my brother, who's 10 years older than I am. I told him what Porter said, and he said, that's about right. So he sat down and counted every household in Ballsville, starting with the beginning of Ballsville, which was up around where the Barber family lived. What someone was here from the Barber? Right here. Yeah, Frank Barber. He started up about where they lived and counted every house. Right. Yeah, it was his dad. He counted every house all the way down about where the Browns lived. That's where he thought Ballsville ended. And he came up, and he estimated how many people were in each household. He came up with 245. So he and Porter were very close, and I figured those were the people who probably knew best how many people lived in Ballsville. And so I relied on that. Now, those were days of segregation, and discrimination was plentiful in those days. When we rode to Richmond on the Greyhound bus, we caught the bus out in front of Netherland's store, what many of you know about. The bus went at 6 o'clock in the morning, came back at 6 o'clock in the evening. The whites sat in the front of the bus, and blacks had to sit in the back of the bus, even if there were vacant seats in front. That's just the way it was. The schools were segregated. With the white kids rode a bus to school, but the black kids had to walk to school. My siblings and I walked about 2 miles to school, and we lived way back in the woods, and we had to walk through this little red clay to get to the main highway, and then we walked the rest of the way to school.